Have you ever felt like your own mind is working against you, as if the noise inside is louder than the world outside? A memory that won't let go, a worry that multiplies in the dark, a restless stream of thoughts that never seems to pause. It leaves you drained, unfocused, powerless. We mistake this chaos for intelligence, believing that more motion means more progress. But the truth is harsher. The busier the mind, the duller it becomes. Real strength, real clarity is not born in noise, but in stillness. The old masters knew this. They began not with weapons or techniques, but with silence. Because until you stop fighting yourself, you can never rise above the fight with others. In silence, your breath steadies, your heartbeat slows, and the surface of the mind becomes calm, like a mountain lake that finally reflects the sky. That is when you start to see clearly. The question is, will you dare to face that silence? Stay with me, and I'll show you the path hidden beneath the noise. Now imagine stepping into this first chapter. The air is thick with noise, not the noise of the streets or the crowd, but the noise that fills the mind. Thoughts racing, memories replaying, worries spinning. And yet in all this motion, something strange happens. The more you try to hold, the less you can grasp. A flooded mind is not a sharp mind. It is dull. It is heavy. It cannot cut through anything new. Here's where the paradox strikes. The less you allow in, the more you gain. The less you let the world invade your mind, the more the mind gathers itself into one clear force. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When the fabric is soaked with every stain, it loses its strength. But when you guard it, when you let it breathe, it grows strong again. Picture a lake after a storm. The water ripples, disturbed by every gust of wind, every falling branch, every restless movement. Try to look into it and you see nothing but distortion. That is the untrained mind, always stirred, always unsettled. But wait long enough, let the storm pass, and the water grows still. Suddenly, it reflects everything with perfect clarity. The trees, the sky, your own face. That stillness is the mirror of the soul. Without it you stumble blind, reacting to every nudge, chasing every impulse, never choosing, only following. Many cannot bear this silence. They run from it as if it were fire. They rush back into the comfort of sound, scrolling through endless feeds, filling the space with music, drowning in television, anything but facing the quiet. Why? Because silence strips away the distractions and leaves only yourself. And that can be terrifying. Yet if you can sit, if you can breathe, if you can hold the ground while the thoughts march past, something powerful happens. The thoughts lose their power. They rise, they fall, they vanish. But you remain. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." To master yourself is not to silence the thoughts by force, but to refuse to become their servant. When you stop obeying every noise inside, you grow stronger, more focused, more dangerous. Dangerous not in anger, but in clarity. Think of the fighter in battle. The reckless one charges, striking first, flailing wildly. The wise one waits, watches. He sees the opening. He strikes once, but it ends the fight. The same is true of the mind. The quiet mind is precise. It sees more, it acts less, but accomplishes more. That is the mind you must build, not empty, but charged with hidden fire. And when you touch that inner stillness, the world shifts. Decisions stop dragging you into confusion. Focus comes like breath. Learning becomes swift because the clutter is gone. Emotions no longer command you, you command them. Suddenly you are not struggling against life, you are moving with it. The river does not resist the mountain. It flows around it, and in time it carves the stone itself. This is where the real power begins, in silence, in the space where you are no longer a captive of noise. Let the others chase distraction, let them burn out in the storm. You stay with stillness, because in stillness you will find the mirror that shows you who you are and who you could become. And as we leave this chapter, one question remains. If silence can turn chaos into clarity, what else might it awaken in you when you learn to truly see? Advancing to the second chapter, imagine a blade dulled by constant friction. It may have cut once, but now it struggles to leave a mark. The same is true of the mind when it is buried under endless noise. We think sharpness comes from collecting more, knowing more, chasing more. But the truth is this: a sharp mind is not one that holds everything, but one that sees clearly. Picture the masters across time, the warrior before battle, the monk before meditation, the philosopher before speaking. None of them rushed. None of them drowned themselves in clutter. They trained first to sit still, to quiet the inner storm before lifting their hand. That was not weakness. That was command. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When you can be alone with yourself in silence, you begin to unlock layers of perception that the world of noise will never show you. I remember walking once through a crowded city street, the kind of place where everyone seemed exhausted by the chaos, the honking cars, the flashing screens, the restless chatter. Yet, in the middle of that noise, there was a street musician playing calmly on a violin. He wasn't forcing his sound against the roar. He was flowing with it, precise, measured, at peace. People paused. They listened. In the stillness he carried, there was clarity. That is what a quiet mind feels like amid chaos. You're not dragged down by the storm, you cut through it. So if you want to grow sharper, stop feeding your head with distraction. Stop mistaking constant stimulation for strength. Learn instead to hear the voice beneath the noise. You will be shocked by how much intelligence you already carry, hidden under the clutter. Silence does not create brilliance, it reveals it. But this is the first step, the foundation. If you cannot command your own mind to rest for even 5 minutes, how can you expect it to stay steady under stress, under pressure, under fire? Strength is not built in the noise, it is forged in the stillness. Let the world chase speed, you chase depth. Let them scroll through endless pages. You sit and hold your ground. Let them react to every trigger. You observe, you wait, you choose. They will burn out. You will rise. And when silence stays with you, it is no longer a practice. It is a companion. Then you walk into the world as someone transformed. Not easily distracted, not easily deceived, not easily defeated. This is where the second path opens. Observation. Not looking, not watching, but becoming so still that the world reveals itself without effort. Your skin begins to sense more. Your breath grows quieter. Your thoughts slip into the background. Suddenly, you see what was always there, but overlooked. Most people wander half awake. They think they see, but they miss the patterns. They think they hear, but they miss the message. They look at faces, but they do not see the person behind the eyes. They fill in the blanks with judgment, assumption, habit, and in doing so, they remain blind. This is not intelligence, it is sleepwalking, and to escape it, you must choose awareness over automation. Because the one who truly observes, truly awakens, begins to live on another level entirely. And that is where the next chapter will take us. Entering the third chapter, picture yourself standing in the middle of a storm, but instead of moving, you wait. The wind howls, branches bend, the world rushes around you, yet you remain still. That pause, that breath, that moment of restraint, this is where the power of observation is born. Not in motion, not in noise, but in the deliberate choice to hold. When you resist the urge to react instantly, the world slows down. Every heartbeat sharpens, every sense deepens. You begin to feel what others miss, the tension in a jaw before a lie, the hesitation in a sentence that betrays uncertainty, the forced smile that hides insecurity. These are not small things, they are signals, and signals are the language of truth. Seneca once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." In the same way, true clarity comes from observing without rushing into judgment. I once met a man who never spoke first in any meeting. He would sit quietly, eyes steady, listening. Others filled the room with noise, trying to prove themselves. But when he finally spoke, every head turned. His words carried weight, not because they were louder, but because they were born from careful observation. He saw what others ignored, and that made him formidable. That is the difference between reacting and understanding. The one who reacts is predictable. The one who understands is untouchable. Observation is not passive. It is not waiting without purpose. It is active stillness, alive, alert. It listens beneath the words. It notices the space between gestures. It feels the energy others try to hide. Passive waiting is emptiness. Observation is presence. That subtle difference changes everything. Think of how often people are fooled by appearances. A confident tone makes them follow. A charming smile makes them trust. A display of emotion makes them surrender. But the trained observer sees through it. They recognize the mask, and once you see the mask, you are no longer controlled by it. You do not need to argue. You do not need to prove. You already know. That quiet knowledge is sharper than any blade, and observation does not stop with others. It begins with yourself. Notice how your body shifts at different times of day, how your mood changes after a certain meal, how silence steadies you while noise scatters you. Most live half awake, missing these patterns. They believe they see, but they are blind to what drives them. You, however, can choose to wake. By saying less and watching more, you begin to map the threads that weave through your life. This is not arrogance. This is discipline. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Let that be your reminder to hold your tongue, to open your eyes, to feel with the whole of your awareness. The more you train this, the more the world bends in your favor. You begin to move with precision because you know when to wait, when to step, when to strike. And the greatest power of all, you do not need to be seen as powerful. Your presence alone is enough. Hold this thought, because from here we turn to something even deeper, the rhythm that links body and mind, and how mastering it will anchor everything you have begun to build. From here, imagine walking through your own days as if tracing invisible lines on a map. Some paths leave you drained, others strengthen you, yet most pass unnoticed until you choose to look. These threads are hidden, but they govern everything: your energy, your decisions, your fate. When you begin to see them, life shifts from random chance to deliberate choice. Think of the power in a single moment. One careless word can poison a relationship. One steady breath can dissolve rising anger. One heartbeat of patience can prevent a disaster. This is not theory. It is cause and effect unfolding in front of your eyes. Observation teaches you to live with precision, not because you control every outcome, but because you stand fully present to adjust with quiet force. A Stoic does not cling to chaos. He watches, then acts with clarity. That is intelligence. That is danger, the kind of danger that comes from being awake when others are asleep. I recall a teacher who never rushed. While others panicked under deadlines, he would sit still, pen unmoving, eyes steady. Then, with one small adjustment, one precise choice, he would untangle what seemed impossible. He wasn't faster, he wasn't louder, he was simply clearer. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and clarity sharpens that estimate into truth." The modern world trains us to skim the surface, look but not see, scroll but not study, hear but not listen. This dulls the mind, rusts the blade of perception, but the mind is capable of so much more if you strip away the numbing habits and let it sharpen again. In Shaolin training, they teach you to walk through the forest and hear the wind not just as noise, but as message, to see leaves not as background, but as signs of change, to notice the ground not as surface, but as history. This is not mysticism, it is mastery. Think of the person who senses a shift in the room before anyone speaks. They don't dominate, they don't announce, yet they already lead, because awareness moves faster than words. Presence becomes power without effort. The one who notices wins before others even realize the game has begun. That is the quiet strength observation gives. And remember, this practice is not paranoia. It is not suspicion. It is aliveness. To be fully awake, fully engaged, fully clear. To let perception itself become your shield and your compass. You do not need to be the loudest or the fastest. You need only to be the one who sees most clearly. So sharpen your awareness. Train it to step ahead of your words, ahead of your actions. Live one step ahead, not by predicting the future, but by seeing the present with eyes unclouded. Practice until your presence alone shifts the air around you, until others feel they are being seen in a way that cannot be faked. This is where observation transforms into perception, and perception into power. And from this power, the next secret unfolds, how the breath itself becomes the anchor that ties awareness to unshakable control. At this stage, imagine the first cry of a newborn breaking the silence of the world. Not a thought, not a word, just breath. And at the other end of life, the final exhale leaves everything behind. Between these two moments, your entire story is written. Breath is the rhythm older than memory, older than emotion, older than thought itself. It is the bridge between the mind and the body, the doorway into clarity or chaos. Notice what happens when your breath falters. Shallow breath scatters the mind. Rapid breath spins the heart into panic. Focus evaporates. But when the breath slows, deep inhale, steady exhale, the storm quiets. The mind sharpens, emotions soften, chaos gives way to stillness. This is not mysticism. It is the body speaking its oldest truth. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The breath is that power in motion. Because while you cannot command your heart to slow by thought alone, you can command the breath. And when you master the breath, everything else begins to follow. The monks understood this. That is why the first lesson for a student at the temple is not meditation or combat. It is breath. Again and again, until each inhale becomes awareness and each exhale becomes release. Without control of breath, there is no control of thought. Without control of thought, there is no path to wisdom, only reaction, only chaos. I remember a time when anger overtook me in an instant, words sharp on my tongue, heat flooding my chest. Yet in that moment, something small broke through. I caught my breath. One long inhale, one long exhale. The surge weakened, the space widened. The insult passed without dragging me into the fire. That single breath saved me from myself. Think of how many mistakes in your life were born from breath you did not hold, panic that drowned reason, fear that silenced your voice, anger that erupted before you could stop it. Each was the cost of breath left untrained. A sharp mind is not forged by thinking harder. It is forged by thinking clearer. And clarity does not come from strain. It comes from stillness. The breath is how you create that stillness. You do not chase it, you prepare the ground. Every inhale steady but unforced. Every exhale long enough to empty what you cling to, both in body and in thought. The breath is a cleansing fire that burns away the unnecessary. Most people do not breathe, they merely survive. Automatic, shallow, unaware. But in the path of mastery, nothing is left automatic. Each breath becomes an act of command, a choice to shape the state of the mind. Inhale with awareness, exhale with intention. This is how you train presence. From here, ask yourself, if a single breath can stop anger, calm fear, and clear thought, what might a life built on conscious breath unlock? The answer is not far. It is already within you, waiting to be drawn in, waiting to be released. Moving into the next chapter, imagine standing in a crowded room where voices rise, decisions collide, and emotions flare. Most people tense up, their breath shallow, their thoughts tangled. But one person stands calm, steady, centered. Nothing mystical, just mastery of breath. Every time you lose your breath, you lose your power. But when you command it, you reclaim yourself. Your breath can be an anchor when storms close in, a shield when conflict presses against you, a weapon when silence is the only answer. In the heat of stress, others panic. You remain still. When they rush, you hold your ground. This isn't trickery, it is daily discipline. Because what you build in peace is what will serve you in pressure. The Stoics knew this. Strength is not forged in the crisis, but before it. Seneca once wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and preparation begins with breath." Picture walking into a room charged with tension. In that instant, you slow your breath. Your heart rate steadies, your posture straightens, your awareness expands until your presence weighs heavy, not with aggression, but with grounded force. You do not need to speak. People feel it. That is the rare effect of trained breath in a frantic world. It is invisible, yet undeniable. Control of the breath is not about holding or forcing. It is about harmony. To breathe with the whole body, letting the nervous system follow the rhythm you set. Remember this: the brain listens more to your breath than to your thoughts. You may think you are calm, but if your breath is tight, the brain refuses to believe. You may think you are confident, but if your breath is weak, your energy leaks. The breath does not lie. So when confusion rises, when anger burns, when weakness tempts you, the first question is not, "What am I thinking?" but "How am I breathing?" Fix the breath, and the mind follows. Fix the breath, and the emotions settle. Fix the breath, and clarity returns. This is not a one-time technique. It is not a momentary trick. It is a way of life. And the beauty of it, you do not need solitude, silence, or special conditions. You can practice in the chaos of traffic, in the noise of the crowd, in the heat of conflict. One conscious breath is enough to change the course of a moment. One aware inhale can stop a mistake. One steady exhale can open a new path. One breath can return you to yourself. Practice it until it shapes your very identity. You cease to be the one who reacts. You become the one who chooses. You stop being dragged by emotions. You learn to ride them like waves. You no longer fear the unknown, because breath itself becomes your constant companion. And from here, the path grows deeper still, because once the breath steadies, the mind learns detachment. And detachment is the final key to unshakable strength. Entering this chapter, feel the steady rise and fall of your chest. Inhale, exhale, the first rhythm you ever knew, the last rhythm you will leave behind. With it, you can face anything, because breath never abandons you. It is not only air, it is space. And without space, there is no clarity, only noise. Without breath, there is no strength, only pressure. Without awareness of breath, there is no awareness of life itself. So if you want to sharpen your mind, to anchor your presence, begin here. Not in knowledge, but in the body. Not in endless words, but in the pause between them. Breathe until it becomes second nature. Do not rush. Do not fake. Return to it again and again until breath is no longer just survival. It becomes your compass. In the storm, others scatter. You remain steady. In confusion, others drift. You stay rooted. The more you master your breath, the less you need to prove anything. Your presence speaks louder than any argument. Breathe with purpose until purpose breathes through you. Now imagine the battlefield within your own head. Not every thought belongs to you. Some are echoes from wounds long past. Some are fears picked up from voices around you. Some are patterns repeated so often that you mistake them for truth. The danger begins when you obey them blindly, when you treat every thought as a command rather than a passing shadow. That is how power is lost. That is how the mind enslaves itself. The weak thoughts are easy to spot once you stop bowing to them. They sound like excuses. They whisper hesitation. They invent reasons not to act, not to speak, not to try. That voice is not your guide. It is a ghost. It is fear in disguise. Epictetus taught, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." Detachment is not the death of thought. It is freedom from its tyranny. You still hear the voices. You simply stop becoming them. Think of clouds drifting across the sky. Do you chase them? Do you hold them? No, you watch them move, knowing they are not the sky itself. In the same way, thoughts rise and fall, some dark, some light. None define you unless you let them. This is where intelligence truly begins, not in collecting, but in discerning. Not in believing everything, but in choosing what deserves your energy. I recall once standing before an important decision. My mind screamed with doubts. "You're not ready. You will fail. You cannot." Those words pressed hard. But then I stepped back. I listened to them as if they were strangers passing in the street. I asked, are they truth or just noise? And in that space, clarity returned. The step forward was mine to take, and I took it. Detachment is not coldness. It is clarity, not escape, but recognition. To see your thoughts without being ruled by them, that is mastery. Because once you stop being pushed by every echo, you walk with deliberate strength. And this is the doorway to the final stage, where observation, breath, and detachment fuse into a mind unshakable, a presence untouchable, a life fully your own. Advancing to this chapter, imagine standing in a dimly lit room filled with echoes. Some voices whisper doubt, others chant hesitation, a few roar with fear. They sound convincing, but ask yourself, are they true or are they just noise? This is where awareness steps in. You begin not only to hear your thoughts, but to weigh them. You ask, is this thought serving me or stopping me? Is it building me or breaking me? Is it mine or something I absorbed so many times that I mistook it for truth? In that moment, you stop being a follower of thought and become a leader of awareness. A weak thought may say, I cannot do this. Awareness answers, maybe that is just fear. Another says, I am not ready. Presence replies, perhaps readiness will never come in the way I imagine. I begin anyway. That is not denial. That is detachment. And detachment does not strip you of thought. It frees you from being owned by it. You still hear the voices, but you no longer kneel before them. This discipline is not built overnight. It is trained like the body, like the breath. You sit in silence. You watch the parade of thoughts march past. You let them rise without grasping. You let discomfort stay without running to fix it. You let storms move across the mind without running into the rain. Each time you resist the pull, you grow sharper. Each time you breathe instead of react, you expand the space between stimulus and response. And in that space, Epictetus would say, lies your freedom. Most people never reach this point. They believe everything they think, and that makes them predictable. Their anger can be provoked, their fear manipulated, their vanity controlled. But the one who learns to pause becomes unreadable, calm, focused, dangerous. Like a warrior who no longer flinches at the threat of the blade, you train yourself not to flinch at the threat of thought. A strong thought comes, you examine it. A weak thought comes, you release it. No war, no struggle, just choice. This is freedom of mind, and freedom of mind is the deepest strength. Weak thoughts love comfort. They crave delay. They disguise themselves as logic, but underneath is always fear. They will always whisper the easy path, but that path leads nowhere. You cannot stop fear from visiting, but you can stop it from becoming your master. Marcus Aurelius warned, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That power begins when you stop mistaking fear for truth. So pay attention to your inner language. Listen for the phrases that repeat, the ones that hold you back. They are not wisdom, they are habit. When you challenge them, something shifts. A new space opens between thought and action. At first it is small, but with practice it grows. Each pause adds another brick to the fortress of your presence. Soon, you are no longer a slave to reaction. You live in response, not panic. You live in clarity, not confusion. Yes, the mind can be noisy, but even in the noise you can remain sharp. Even when flooded with thoughts, you can stay clear. The key is not silence of thought, but mastery of choice. Weak thoughts will still come, but you will know their mask. And once you see the mask, it loses its hold. This is the quiet strength of detachment, not absence, but clarity, not suppression, but mastery. And as we step into the next stage, we'll see how this discipline of awareness transforms from inner strength into a presence that bends the outer world itself. Here's where we arrive, at the edge of noise and clarity. Picture yourself standing before a storm. Clouds twist, thunder roars, and lightning splits the sky. Yet you are not within it. You are watching from the ridge, calm, steady, untouched. This is what it means to step outside your thoughts. You no longer live inside their chaos. You observe from beyond, and from there you choose. That choice is the mark of intelligence. That separation is what divides wisdom from noise. Weak thoughts will come, but they pass like waves if you do not bow. You remain unmoved until the signal is true. That is not stubbornness. That is mastery. Epictetus told his students, "When something happens, the only thing in your power is your judgment." Weak thoughts are not truth. They are just judgments, temporary shadows crossing the mind. The mastery is not in killing them, but in refusing to bow. This training creates presence. Not the shallow presence of someone loud and restless, but the heavy presence of someone rooted. You are no longer ruled by what you feel for a moment. You are guided by what you know from silence, from breath, from observation. Each pause becomes a stone beneath your feet. Each choice builds a foundation beneath you, and when you move as one who has chosen every step, not stumbled into them. I recall a man I once met, a veteran who had faced real battle. He said the hardest part was not the fight itself, but the waiting. Hours of silence, watching the horizon, steadying his breath. The undisciplined cracked under the weight of their own thoughts. They panicked before a single shot was fired, but the disciplined grew sharper. They slowed their pulse, they calmed their minds, they did not flinch. And when the moment came, they moved with precision. That precision saved lives. It is the same in our own battles. Most people collapse under the weight of their thoughts. They react without question, slaves to fear, anger, impulse, but the one who has trained awareness remains unreadable, calm, focused, dangerous. This is the power the Stoics pointed toward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That is not comfort. That is instruction. Your mind is not the enemy. It is the weapon, but only if you hold the handle, not the blade. So do not fear your thoughts. Do not run from them. Train them. Command them. Sit in the right seat, not the seat of fear, not the seat of raw emotion, but the seat of awareness. From here you decide when to act. From here you become the master. And when you reach this point, something extraordinary happens. You realize freedom was never out there. It was always in here, in the space between thought and action, in the silence that waits beneath the noise. That is mastery. That is strength. And from this mastery, the path opens to its final teaching, how presence itself, when fully trained, bends the world to your will without you ever needing to force it. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who watches them pass. You are not the noise. You are the silence, strong enough to hold it all. Detach not with coldness, but with clarity, not to escape, but to truly see. And once you see, weakness cannot deceive you again. Walk with this presence, for every step will be yours. If this message resonates, subscribe and write clarity below. Keep walking forward. Your next step will open more than you imagine.